I've said this a few times already, but I really want to clarify that self-analysis is very important while editing. If there's something that you're doing over and over again, find a way to do that really fast. Are you typing out a lot? Is there a way to copy and paste that text? Are you reformatting text a lot? Can you copy and paste an old version of that text? Are you animating any kind of movements? Is there a way to use a transition for that? Does it look just as good? Does it look good enough? If you're retiming clips a lot, can you select multiple clips and retime them all? When I edit recipe videos, I select a lot of clips and time them all to 250%. And all the time in between, I retime to 6 frames. Because that's a good starting point, then I can move on from there. Is there an old project that you can open, resave, and replace some footage? Editing can always be faster. When you continually self-analyze, you can take the technical clunkiness out of editing and thrive in creativity. And editing will be fun. Since I really value saving time in editing, I often create template projects for myself. This is something that you can do too. If you have a web series that always uses the same graphics, or you make documentaries and you always move photos in the same way, or maybe you always use the same music for your end page, put that into a template project. So every time you start something new, you can open the template project, save as the new project name, and go from there. This will save you the step of always importing the same things. I'm going to show you a quick run through of how I would begin an interview project. I grab my footage, import by dragging and dropping. I grab one of the files and drag it onto the new project window. I see here that I have the close-up of the interview. Now I'm going to drag the other piece of footage on top. That is the wide shot. Close-up, wide shot. Close-up, wide shot. Okay, I see that they are not in sync. I can tell by zooming in right here. I see there's a peak here. That probably goes here. This peak probably goes there. But how am I going to sync these up? I'm going to select both of them, right-click, and go up to Synchronize. Synchronize, I'll use the audio and hit OK. It's processing, and now it linked up. You can see this clap goes with this clap, and everything else is going to look pretty good. I'm going to zoom out. Now it looks like they're all aligned. This is bothering me a bit, so I'm going to drag this up here. Now I'll select everything and right-click and press Nest. I'm going to call this Interview 1. This is how it comes in. I'm going to right-click this again and click Multi-camera enable. It makes it a multicam here, but for some reason it doesn't show it there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold command and double click. When I hold command and double click, you can see the icon changed shapes. That means it will always be a multicam clip. Now when I come back out here, I'm going to delete everything here, boom, and drag this back onto it so it has one piece of audio and one piece of video. Let's go in this again. Command, double click. I'm going to listen to it and find which is the better audio. I'm going to listen to it for a bit, soloing this. I'm going to let go. I'm going to solo this. Okay, I think that the first one is better audio, so I'll solo it and I'll go ahead and mute this. So I'm only going to be hearing this audio on track 1. Now I'm going to go back out here. I can see here that the audio is present. Sometimes you don't see the waveform here, and what you can do is go up here in sequence and click render audio. That will render out all the waveform. So now I'll just take a few clips. I'll take this clip, and I know what I want for this example. I'm going to cut it out like this. Now that I have the 4 pieces that I want for the interview, I'm going to get rid of the rest. So I'll select this, hold shift, and I'm going to press option delete. That'll ripple delete everything, and zoom in here. Now that I'm here, I know that I have different angles for each one of these answers. So now I can click the wrench and go to multi-camera. This way I can see what is happening in each one of the angles. So I play through this. If I ever want to switch to wide, I can click here or press 2, and then switch here, press 1, go back to 2. It goes back to 1 naturally in the new clip. I'm going to stay on 1 this whole time, and I'm going to go to 2 here. I'll select it here and swap it. We see it swaps here on the timeline from MC1 to MC2. It looks like I changed at the very last minute here. I'm going to get rid of that or back it up a little bit. And then I have a great interview. I have the cuts that I want, and that is the way I edit interviews. When you make it a multicam clip at the very beginning, you can switch between the shots easily at any point in the future. Also, you don't have to be handling 2 tracks all the time. And that's how I edit an interview. Many times I'll get projects that want to take an hour-long interview or an hour-long concert and summarize it into 3 minutes. This sometimes is a daunting task, and at the end of the day, you have to watch all the footage. So I'd recommend you go through it in steps. Start at the beginning and start playing. I'd recommend you go through it in fast speed, which if you hit L 2 times, it'll increase the speed. Listen to it quickly, and when you hear something that you like, go back, clip it, 1, 2, and drag that piece of video up 1 level. I'll tell you more why later. Go forward as you're playing through it again. At this point, we're only cutting for content that we like. Go through it a little more, and here I heard something else I like, so I'm going to cut this part. Clip, clip. If you look right here, I'll zoom in. I cut in the middle of a sentence, but I'll fix that later. I'll drag that up like I told you to do earlier. Here I heard something else that I like, so I'm going to cut that as well. Cut, cut, drag up. As you're going through and listening to more of it, you'll hear more things that you like. You might have to rewatch it, and since you've already heard it, you'll be able to play through it quickly. Cut it here, drag up for your viewing pleasure. Okay, now, why do we bring all these onto the second layer? I'm going to press A and hold Shift. Only select what's on video layer 1. I'm going to hold Option and Delete, which is a ripple delete. Now all this footage, I went from 3 minutes to 45 seconds. Now I can go through and tweak this. Here I see the place I can cut off because it looks like there was a long pause. Now I have 44 seconds to work with. I'll go through it again. I'll watch it quickly. I'll see if the clips work together. If they don't, I'm going to grab this and hold Command Option. I'll put it at the beginning and it will push everything forward and put that at the beginning. This one, I want it to be second. I'll hold Command Option and drop it right there. Then I'll play through it and it will probably sound a lot better. I use this same technique when I'm going through concert footage and I need to pull out cool dance moves or specific parts of a song. I'll use a similar method when I'm cutting parts of a DIY project or something to cut out all the wait time, and it makes it a lot easier to go through 3 minutes of footage every time you want to search for something. Sometimes I'll take this whole thing and call it great sound bites, highlights, or something like that. Then I'll duplicate it and start working from the duplication. Here's a quick tip to put all these clips right next to each other. If I had this many clips, I'd probably click here, hit backspace, delete, click, delete, click, delete, click, delete, click, delete, and they'd all come together like this. That's pretty easy. But when you have about 100 of these, that takes a lot longer. So I'm going to undo that and add a black video. Now with this black video, I'm going to drag it onto layer 2 and extend it all the way past all of the clips. And I'm going to take them and I'm going to lift them 1 layer and then put them back down. Now I have this black video layer cut into several different pieces. I can right click it and click Ripple Delete. Boom. All of these clips are now together. I don't know why there's not a better way to do this, but this trick saves a lot of time and clears out all that space. Here is a tip to solve problems with drop shadows. On this photo of a baby, you can't see the baby's name very clearly in the text. I would probably want to put a drop shadow on it. I go here and apply the drop shadow so you can see the baby's name a lot better. But when you go to other text, it has no drop shadow. I want to match that same shadow, but if I click here, I'll have to go back and forth, find the correct settings, and that may take quite some time. I'll look at the settings. Okay, 7.8, 11.7, 49, 7.8, 11, wait, oh, I forgot. That's too much to do. So what I'll do is I'll take the drop shadow off of the text appearance, but I'll add an effect, drop shadow, here. I'll modify this to be exactly how I want it, and this effect I can copy with Command C and paste to match it exactly. That way, the drop shadows can be consistent throughout, and it's easy to copy and paste onto all of your text. When you're editing to music, it looks really great when you cut to the beat. And on the timeline, we can look at the waveform and see where the beats are. But when you start adding footage, it's hard to get it exactly right. Here's a tip to add markers on the beat. This will let your footage snap to those specific spots. Here's what you do. Let the music play through and press M on all the beats. Let's go through this piece. Now when I place my footage on, it will snap exactly into the beats. Then once you have everything edited, adjust slightly to change it all around. I know where the beats approximately are because of these markers, but you might need a few changes in the end. Alright, looks good. So I have my piece of music, and let's put it on the timeline. Wow, it is way too long. Let's look at the waveform. It looks like every 3 or 4 seconds, it repeats, or at least has a similar structure. So I'm going to take the last few, I'm going to cut it right here, and bring it to right here. But I'm going to go down one level. Since we don't need to look at visuals right now, I'm going to make the timeline really big. I'm going to mute the dialogue audio so I can just concentrate on the music. Bring this back, and look at these a little closer. Let's zoom in right here. Now it looks like these waveforms are lining up quite nicely, but they might be off by a few frames. Let's zoom in even closer. Let's drag this over one. I'm going to make a cut right here. Boom, boom, and see what happens when I delete this and I delete this. So now it repeats, 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 and then the last part is one last repeat with the ending that it was originally intended to have. So let's listen. That works quite nicely. What if it doesn't happen in the last 4 seconds, but it happens somewhere else in the song? I zoom in and I make sure that it looks good. So I'm deleting this, I'm zooming out, and let's listen to it now. Okay, that works, and we still have the original ending of the song. This song is a little bit easier to cut, but you may have a situation that you want to use a song and need to be a little bit creative in order to cut it to the correct amount of time. For more difficult pieces, you may need to use a little assistance. So let's open up Adobe Audition. Here in Audition, I'll take the song and open it up. You have to make it a new multi-track session, and in here, click Properties. Down in Remix, enable Remix. It's going to analyze the clip and tell you exactly how long it is. Right now, it's at 1 minute, 8 seconds, 0.640. Remember, our video is 30 seconds. So here, I'm going to put 30 seconds. And now Audition did the edit for us, which you can see by this jagged line, and made it 30 seconds plus or minus 5 seconds. It ended up being 34,351, but that's too long. So I'm going to go with 27 seconds and see what happens. When I type 27 seconds, then the remix duration comes out to 30.63. Let's see how it sounds. You can see because of the 3 jagged lines that 3 cuts have been made, but it comes out to almost the exact duration that we want. I want to get it back into Premiere. I'm going to go to File, Export, Export to Adobe Premiere Pro. I'll save it, mix down session to a stereo file, and export. Then it's going to automatically open up Premiere and add the track down here. Mute these tracks and listen. And that works. We'll check the ending, and it ends at the correct time. Here is a fun audio tip, the reverse cymbal. It's a magical fix to increase audience anticipation. I'm going to bring in an old video. It already has music, but since we're talking about audio, I'm going to go ahead and take it out. So now this is a video. It's a slow time lapse of a woman getting pregnant and then the baby. Then we see the before and after pictures, and it's over. We scroll through and you have 2 events. When the baby pops up, boom. So I've placed a marker here. And the other event is when the 2 pictures come together, boom. The biggest wait time is while we're waiting to see the baby come out, here. So let's take a cymbal hit sound effect and find when that works. That works. I'm going to place an in and an out. I'll drag this onto the timeline. It doesn't really make sense right now, but I'm going to reverse it. If I hit Command R, I have clip speed and duration. I can reverse speed and hit OK. Now, based on the waveform and where I have the marker, I want the sound to end as soon as the event happens. So I'm going to line it up right here. Now let's watch. That works pretty well. It builds anticipation until the actual event is going to happen. And then, right as the event happens, let's have another sound effect. Angry boat. You've probably heard this in every trailer in the past 12 years. Let's put that in right as the event happens. I'm going to zoom in and make sure it starts right at the event. Now let's watch. That looks great. One thing I notice is that this takes a long time. I'm going to cut here. I'm going to press R to retime and drag in. Drag this in and start here. And then there's another piece of movement right here that we could emphasize with a piece of sound. Let's go back to the cymbal hit sound effects. We're looking for something shorter now. That works. So let's take this one, I for in, O for out, and drag it down onto the timeline. I'm going to zoom in and line it up right when this event happens. It's lined up, zoom out again. There we go. It's a video with just sound effects. Hopefully having a baby is not that scary. When you're cutting interviews, there's several ways to do it, and the style of your project will determine what you need to do regarding vocalized pauses. Vocalized pauses are breaks in verbal communications that interrupt your thoughts. They are identified as fillers such as and, Too many of these fillers will have the person on screen sound unknowledgeable, uninterested, or lacking confidence. So let's look at a small piece of an interview and compare how it sounds with and without the vocalized pauses. Here's a short answer to one of my questions.
Well, work is definitely challenging, and it's great because I'm expanding and growing, and I'm growing in my position, I'm growing in responsibilities, I'm getting to make a lot of decisions.
So here she has a repeated word.
It's great because I'm expanding.
And then here she has a vocalized pause.
And I'm growing in my position.
We don't need to hear those words to understand what she's talking about. So let's try cutting them out. I'm going to cut here, cut here, cut here, and cut here. I'm cutting just based on the waveform. I'm going to ripple delete these two, and let's listen.
It's great because I'm expanding and growing. I'm growing in my position.
Looks like the second edit works, but the first one does not. So let's zoom in.
It's great.
Okay, so it looks like right here is where I need to make the cut. Ripple delete again.
It's great. It's great.
Okay, all we need there is a small dissolve.
It's great because
that sounds better.
My challenging. It's great because I'm expanding and growing. I'm growing in my position.
Now we cut out the vocalized pauses. Now let's listen to the whole thing. It only cut out about half a second, but let's listen.
Well, work is definitely challenging, and it's great because I'm expanding and growing. I'm growing in my position, I'm growing in responsibilities, I'm getting to make a lot of decisions.
To me, she sounds a little bit more confident, but a little less raw. I usually side with going a little bit faster, having them sound a little bit more confident on their subject. But if you're going for more of a raw documentary style and a little less polish, you can leave all those pauses in. And by the way, if you have two cameras going, on this middle section, I would probably switch cameras so I don't have a jump cut. So it would play like this.
Work is definitely challenging, and it's great because I'm expanding and growing. I'm growing in my position, I'm growing in responsibilities, I'm getting to make a lot of decisions.
You still have a flow of an answer, but without the vocalized pauses, and you save more time in the cut. Let's talk about nesting. Nesting can be very helpful in many different ways. Let's talk about 3. One we've already talked about is creating multicam clips. Another reason for nesting could be to get extra speed. Here's what I mean. If you have a really long clip, let's put this whole interview on the timeline, and you make it as fast as you can, which is 10,000. It comes out to be 1 second and 27 frames. You can't retime to anything greater than 10,000. Let's try 20,000 and nothing changes, because 10,000 is the maximum retime speed when you retime it like this. However, if you nest it, you can start over. This can be retimed to 200, and that would give you a 20,000 speed increase. If you're shooting a sunset and you want it to go down really quickly, but the clip is really long, you might use this technique. A third great reason to use nesting is sequence size problems. Here's a clip of me asking a very dangerous question. Hi, you are pregnant, right?
Yeah.
I'm glad she said yes, and I'm glad she's my wife. If we have some graphics here, and we take this whole clip and want to put it into a different sequence, the graphics will be a completely different size. See here, it touches both her arms, and here it's small and just over the middle of her shirt. The difference is this is a square sequence, and this is a widescreen sequence. So using nesting, we can get it to come over and maintain the dimensions and size. So here I'm going to nest this, I'll copy it here, and paste it here. Now when I change sequence size, the look of the text remains the same. There are plenty of other great uses for a nested sequence, but these tips really may be handy someday. Let's talk about retiming clips. Here I have a 20-minute video of some footage from a New York street. And in this example, I'm going to take out a few sections that I want to see more clearly than the rest. So I'm going to take these sections here. The rest I still want to see it, but a lot faster. So I'm going to take all these clips and press Command R to retime. I'm going to adjust the speed on all of these to 250%. But if I don't check one of the boxes in that dialog window, I'm going to have these gaps. So let me undo and show you again. Command R to retime, and this time I'm going to click Ripple Edit to 50, enter. So now I have these clips sped up with no gaps in between. Now I'm going to select the bottom clips, Command R to retime, and this time instead of a speed, I'm going to set a duration for all of them to be. I want them all to be 10 frames long. Now we can zoom in, backslash to see everything on the timeline. Now we have super fast, a slower fast, a super fast, and a slower fast. With those sped up so much, I'm going to try retiming these as well. Let's go to 2500, and now we'll check it out. Super fast, a slower fast, super fast, a slower fast, etc. I might not use this for street footage, but I do use it a lot when making recipe videos. I'll speed up the stirring a little bit, but while I'm waiting to see the next ingredient added to cut out the dead time, and without having a jump cut, I'll speed up those moments extremely fast. Like many of my other examples, I want to get the edits as close to the final product as it will be in a fast way, and then I can go through it again and make small, precise cuts. In this example, I did exactly what I wanted to do and got 20 minutes of footage down to under 20 seconds. And this may not be exactly what I want, but it's a lot easier to adjust these 20 seconds than the 20 minutes I had before. Quick tip on custom transitions. Here, I have a lens flare. You see it goes from black to full screen to black again. If I bring this onto the timeline, I'm not sure when the transition actually happens. Here, it's too late. It looks like right about here is the full screen transition that should be over the cut. So a trick I use is to place a marker on the full screen part, and that's what I drag onto the cut. So let's look for it. Right here is perfect. I'm going to press M for marker, and that's what I'll drag over the cut between the two clips. Now let's watch it. That makes sense. We go all the way up to the full screen, and then it fades out on the new clip. This isn't specific to lens flares. It can be for any kind of custom transition that you have. Here's a couple of quick notes about color correction. One is when you're color correcting a multicam, don't do it on your regular timeline. Go into the multicam and color correct this layer and this layer. That way, the color correction can be consistent throughout the project. Because if you color correct on your main timeline and you make one small change, it will only affect that clip and all the rest will look different. A key to good color correction is to make everything look consistent, unless in your project you need to show that you're in a different location or it's a start of a new scene. But if there are two camera angles in the same interview, the color should be consistent. I'll show you a quick example. We have camera angle 1 here, 2, 1, 2, 1. So let's make a color correction change here. I'm going to change workspace to color, and I'm going to just make it really blue. I don't think this looks good here, but it's just for this example. Now watch. Orange, orange, blue, orange, orange. Here what I could do, I'll go back to my timeline, I'll go down here, copy the color, and I'll paste it here, and I'll paste it here. Now everything is a little bit cooler. If I make one change again, it's only going to affect that clip. Here's what I recommend. To go back to the original, I'm going to select all of these and go to Edit, Remove Attributes. Okay. Now let's go into the multicam and color correct this. Color? I'll make this very green. back to my regular workspace. And every time we see camera angle 2, it's always going to have the same color correction. My second tip is for when you have a lot of different clips and they all require the same color correction because they were all shot in the same general location at the same time of day with the same camera. What I do to make sure every clip has been corrected, I add an adjustment layer. I'm going to drag the adjustment layer over the entire project. I'll go to the color workspace again, make everything a little pink. And now as I scrub through the project, and I can see visually that everything under this adjustment layer has the color correction applied to it. If I have 2 parts to the video, and I want one kind of color correction on the first half and another on the second, I'll split the adjustment layer and apply the second adjustment here and the first here. These adjustment layers are a good visual reminder to see that everything has been color corrected. We talked about using adjustment layers for color correction. Another way to use blank adjustment layers is for organizational purposes. For example, in this interview, pregnancy is discussed, work life is discussed, and marriage is discussed. So you could rename adjustment layers and place them on the timeline, have multiples, and then you can see on the timeline what part of the interview talks about pregnancy, work, and marriage. So when you're looking for a line about work, you can zoom in easily to this entire segment and look for the line you need. Another way to do this same thing is using markers. Let's get rid of these. Here's where the interview starts. So I'll press M to add a marker and double click it to open it up. Because of what I'm going to show you, I'm going to put the name in the comments section. Pregnancy, and add a duration by clicking and dragging to the right. It doesn't matter how long this is. Okay, here I see pregnancy, and I can extend this marker to whatever amount I need. Then I'll place another marker by pressing M. Double click it. In the comments section, I'll write work, and I'm going to change the marker color to red. Okay, if I drag it now, I can only move the marker. So I need to go back and add a duration. Now I can extend it to the entire time she's talking about work. I'll add a third marker here, double click it, change it to purple, and write marriage. Now here I have pregnancy, work, and marriage. And using this method, you can go into further detail. I'll add another marker here. In this area, she talks about her husband. All this is within marriage, but this area, she's talking specifically about her husband. So what if this is an hour-long interview and you have tons of markers? If I click Window and open up the Markers window, I can see here pregnancy, work, marriage, husband, and the in and out points. When I click on them, it goes to this area on the timeline. And I can also search. Because of the way I did this, names are all blank and comments are seen here. I like this because it's easy to add other words like wide shot, close up, or any other details you'll need. I feel like it's easier to use this method than creating a string out for each topic, and it's easy to jump around the timeline. When I worked as an assistant editor, I was tasked with creating this organization, so when the head editor opened the project, they can jump around the timeline to find exactly what they were looking for. Even if you're working alone, if you have a lot of footage, this might be a very helpful technique. Stay organized, but for a 3-minute interview, this might be excessive. But say I had 10 interviews, and they all talked about pregnancy in one way or another. When I search pregnancy, I could see a list of all the different places it was mentioned.